Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome to another VEG Out video with CCUA. I'm Saxon, and today I'm going to be featuring Wangari Maathai as part of our Black Voices in the Natural Sciences. Wangari Maathai was a Kenyan woman, and she's known to be the founder of the Green Belt movement. She was an environmentalist, a civil rights activist, and eventually was given the Nobel Peace Prize. She's sometimes lovingly called by folks in the movement Mama Miti, or the Mother of Trees. Super inspiring life story. She was born in 1940 in a small village near Nyeri, Kenya, which is at the base of Mount Kenya. And she was the oldest girl of all her siblings, and at the time it was commonplace for the oldest girl to be in charge of chores and collecting water, bringing firewood, helping cook, helping clean. And her mother also gave her her own garden to tend. And her mother really was the person, it sounds like, in her life that instilled in her a love for nature and a love for environment. And it's said that her mother had a quote that trees are worth more than their wood. And she taught Wangari to love trees and value them, and to consider them as a very important part of the natural world and of the community of people that she lived in. When Wangari was growing up, the British had colonized Kenya, and they were really the ones that started the deforestation of Kenya's trees, and they were cutting down trees in order to have tea fields and tea plantations. And also because of the presence of the British colonists, Wangari experienced and witnessed a lot of racism in her country, a lot of segregation. There were places she couldn't go and her family couldn't go. And stressful experiences that they had growing up. When Wangari was old enough, her oldest brother encouraged her mother to send her to school, which was not common for girls at the time, but it was recognized that she would really benefit from the experience, and so she went to school and she flourished. And later, when she was old enough, she was a part of a group of several Kenyans that went to the U.S. on a scholarship and started their college education there. That was probably in like the late 1950s, early 1960s. And while in the U.S., she learned a lot, grew her education, grew as a person. She also talks about how in the U.S. she experienced racism similar to what she'd experienced at home. And I've reflected on the fact that the U.S. was considered a free country with a democratic government, but there were still lots of ways that specifically black people and other people of color were not allowed to participate in the same things as white people. Later, Wangari returned to Kenya after finishing her studies, and by that time Kenyans had fought and won their independence. However, the Kenyan people still had kind of developed this cultural tendency to deforestation and the money making that they could gain from that. But Wangari looked around her and she noticed that the lush, green, beautiful, wild Kenya that she had grown up in, that where the people and the land sort of worked together simultaneously, was gone. Lots of wild animals were gone. The women were not able to feed their children because a lot of the good land had been taken to do big farming operations, or even just the soil was bare. And specifically, trees were gone. And because of this, there was erosion of the soils, the water was unclean. And this really made Wangari very sad and made her yearn for the way the land was when she was growing up. And so she decided, because she knew that trees could bring health and wealth and strength and peace to her community, she decided that she wanted to bring that message to others, And in 1977, she started what is now called the Green Belt Movement. And she started organizing women to go out into the land around Kenya and find seeds of the local trees, the native trees that grew there. And then she spent money to build nurseries in different places around Kenya and helped the women to grow the seeds into seedlings, and then they would go out and plant them. And it was called a Green Belt Movement because women would literally work like one after another and kind of in rows, and it sort of created what looked like this green belt across the land. She also would pay the women for their work with the tree seedlings, and men were also involved. Oftentimes, at that point, men were literate and women were not. Men also may have had more schooling with like math and accounting and that kind of thing, and so the men would often keep track of like the record keeping of those things. At the time, mostly in Kenya, there was all men in government, and they really didn't like that Wangari was organizing women, that she was organizing families and the different tribes. They didn't like that she was trying to bring the beauty of nature back to Kenya because it didn't work with them being able to make money and keep their power. And so there were several times that Wangari organized protests or different events against actually the president of Kenya himself. He wanted to cut down even more trees. He wanted to grow or build a big building in this park and put up a statue of himself, and she and other people fought him on that, and she was injured in some of those experiences. She was beaten and jailed sometimes, but it sounds like she never gave up. She really knew in her heart that she was doing the right thing and on the right path, and so each time she would come back out and keep working. And she really became not only this beacon for trees and the environment, but also this leader of her people towards a more democratic Kenya. And so later in her life, she started running for elected office, and she created an environmental party in Kenya. And she noticed that the president and his administration were trying to push the tribes of Kenya apart, because if the tribes were not unified, then the president could keep his power. And instead, Wangari worked to bring tribes together by doing tree trades and working together and speaking about their common needs and issues. In 2002, Wangari was elected to the parliament in Kenya, and the old president had been voted out and his party lost power, and the new president recognized her and gave her several different positions to speak for the environment and to grow environmental awareness in Kenya. And in 2004, for all the different work that she did, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And she died in 2011 when she was 71 years old. She did in her personal life have children, and she was married for a time. In the end, Wangari's work led to a grassroots movement toward democracy in Kenya, and also to probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of trees being regrown all over Kenya. Other countries in Africa started, and the relationship between the people and the land was able to be reformed, and people were able to have better livelihoods because of Wangari Maathai's work. There are some beautiful, wonderful, very well-written children's books about Wangari Maathai out that you could order, or they're on YouTube and they're like read aloud type of things. And while doing my research, I actually listened and watched a few of those because I found that they captured sort of the magic and the love for nature that she had much better than some of like the other just more factual accounts of her life. So we hope that if you're interested, you'll go out and look for Wangari Maathai, and maybe you've learned a little more today about a strong black voice in the natural sciences, Wangari Maathai from Kenya. See you guys later.